You are listening to the BiG Scuba. This is an audio-only episode.
Hi, I'm Mark Evans. I'm here with Ian and Gemma on the BiG Scuba podcast. So I hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the BiG Scuba podcast. This is episode 28.
Hello everyone.
Gemma, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you.
Excellent. So episode 28, welcome back. And if you're listening to us for the first time, welcome. There's a whole load of, it's 27 episodes before this that you need to go to as well. Don't forget them. Let me tell you, did you know, let me just before we start, some interesting facts. 28, the atomic number of nickel. There we go. Learned something. In astronomy, the rotation time of the surface of the sun varies to be in the gas and plasma at 45 degrees. Rotates in 28 days. Did you know that?
No.
The sun rotates in 28 days. Which is could be a topical time. Really. More about that later. And also, the curing time of concrete is 28 days. Anyway, welcome to where it all happened. So, Gemma, what have you been up to lately? What's been happening?
What have we been doing? We've been doing some kayaking and paddleboarding. We've tried a bit of diving.
Good, and also it's been good having the go with the parallel camera, seeing what we can use that for, and that takes a really nice picture. I'm really pleased with how that's working out. So we've got some trips coming up, haven't we? So
yeah, we've got plenty of things we can practice with. Yes.
Yeah. I look forward to that actually.
Yeah, that'd be good. So we can test out all our equipment and the camera.
Yeah, and also after that, we've got a couple of dives coming up. One in Suffolk and one in Norwich.
Yeah, some inland sites. So that will be. So we're not so dependent on the weather, which will be great.
Yeah. So in the UK, most of our diving on the coast. What happens really, most of it, I suppose, from about April through till end of September, possibly October, depending on the weather. And then we kind of it's best really then to go inland really over the, they'll stop, they'll shut up shop for diving over the winter. But more hardy fellows who don't mind the cold, they'll jump in all year round. It's not to say you can't. It just depends on your personal preference. You like the cold or so.
Well, you've got to have the right equipment as well, and we're not blessed with the clearest of seas around here. So once it swells up, there's no visibility. So you've got to jump in an inland site.
Thank you very much. Okay, so what's coming up? So we've got a good friend of the podcast, Mark Evans.
Yeah,
he's joined us to talk about his diving career and some of his diving stories, which is really good. He's the chief editor of Scuba Diver Magazine and also founder of Go Diving, the Go Diving show in the Midlands as well, which we went to in February. That's a really good show, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was my first dive show, so that was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to the next one next year because it will make much more sense as a diver.
Well, exactly. And also, now this year we've spent a lot of time making new friends with, say, Fourth Element, Mares, Cousteau, Paralens. It can just be nice to see them, and put, actually talk to them face to face rather than just by the power of Zoom.
Yeah, so it's more like a diving festival. I think that's the way Mark described it, which is great.
It is, yes.
It is all levels of divers and even non-divers as well, and even youngsters.
Yeah, exactly. So always welcome. It's a good show. I enjoyed it. This year was the second time I went to, and last year was you kind of walk around with your eyes like wide open. You're taking it all in. You didn't know what to expect. This year, you kind of, it's a bit more familiar, and it's great seeing some of the people that we've had on the show, such as Andy Talbot and Miranda, and Monty, and so that was really good. And Steve Baxell, he was there, and some of the other characters. So that's always good. So if you are thinking about a dive show for next year, look out for the Go Diving show.
But the main thing is to look out for the Scuba Diver Magazine. That's in all the dive centres. So that is a great of information and reviews. So it's a good read.
It is, yeah. I agree with that. It's a free magazine, and what do you get free these days? You know, what is there free?
I know. So go to your dive centre.
You get a free
Oh,
magazine,
free
and you get,
magazine.
and also you get a free dive and scuba podcast. How's that? So
Exactly.
there's two things in the world: a Scuba Diver Magazine and a Scuba Diving podcast.
With us.
Anyway, we run on as usual. We digress. So let's move on and let's have a listen to Mark Evans talking to us about his diving career.
On episode 28 of the Big Scuba podcast.
I couldn't say it better myself.
Oh, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the Big Scuba podcast, Mark.
No, it's good. It makes a change for me to be on the other end. Because it's
bet.
like for me doing the live streams on Tuesday and Friday, I'm always the one fronting the questions at people. So it's nice to do it the other way around.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about you. We know you're the editor-in-chief of Scuba Diver Magazine, but I know you've been in the industry a long, long time. So, tell us a little bit about you. You know who you are.
So I'm Mark Evans. As you said, I'm the editor-in-chief and co-owner of Scuba Diver Magazine. We've now got 3 titles in our portfolio with that. We've got Scuba Diver in the UK. We've got Scuba Diver Australia and New Zealand, that's down the Asia Pacific area. And then we've got Scuba Diver Destinations, which is a quarterly magazine that's in Canada and the US. So that keeps me busy with those 3 magazines and the 3 associated websites. And then as a secondary company, we also have the Go Diving Show, which was in February. That was our second show. It was just a bit of a new take on dive shows, really. Things have moved on from dive shows purely being where you went to buy cheap kit. So we were trying to make them more of a festival of diving, if you like. So we had the big name speakers. So obviously this time we had Monty there and Andy Talbot and everyone heading stuff up, and Miranda and that. So that was all great. And then we also had some stuff for people to get involved with. So we had the plastic cave for people to climb around in. We had a climbing wall and stuff like that, as well as a big tri-dive tank. And it was just an opportunity for people to be inspired about diving, meet up with like-minded people, kind of be in that dive tribe. So that was the approach with that, and to try and make it more family friendly, to get more youngsters involved. So that's basically what I do now. As you said, I've been in the dive industry quite a long time. I started with Sport Diver Magazine back in March 1999. I was the editor there. And then I've been doing Scuba Diver for about 3 years. Prior to that, I was a newspaper journalist from age of about 18. But I've been diving since I was 10. So I've been diving for 37 years now, which is why I've got no hair.
Chairman, this is what happens when you wear a hood a lot.
That's it. It makes you more streamlined, though, so your sack rate's lower.
I don't want that image yet.
So I dive. My wife Penny dives as well. I actually met her when I was on assignment for Sport Diver in Florida, and she was managing the dive centre that I went out to dive with.
Cool.
And then our son Luke, he's now 13 and a half, and he's really been born into diving, if you like. So he was snorkeling in Anglesey when he was 3. He went to the Cayman Islands, did the sassy stuff where they have the little tank on the back but they can't sink, when he was 5 and a half. He did his bubble maker 2 days after turning 8 in the shark tank at Blue Planet Aquarium. And he's now a junior advanced open water with about 60 dives, and he's dived in Grenada, Malta and Egypt, as well as England. So
it'll be long before he's an instructor then.
He's definitely got a knack for it. He's just very natural underwater and everything, very relaxed, but he listens, which is the main thing. So he's very switched on. So it's nice. It's a real family affair when we can all go away diving together.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. And that is one of the things because I went to go diving last year and this year, and we all did this year, and it is one of the things that does stand out. It's very family orientated and friendly. You've got kids trying on kit and stuff like that, and it's nice.
It's nice. It's a family thing, and that's nice that you can do that.
It is, because it's one of the few sports I've always compared it a little bit to skiing, where skiing's seen as a family sport. I mean, I know there's other sports you can do as a family, but skiing's always been seen as something that you can all partake in together. And I think that's the thing with diving as well. You know, even if the kids have just got into diving and they're at their 12-metre depth limit, well, in Egypt, all the colourful fish and everything and all the best stuff's into top 10 metres in a lot of places anyway. So the fact that you can't go deep doesn't make any difference. And then it kind of just gets you all doing something together. So we think that's great. And I just think that we need more younger people in diving. When I was the editor of Sport Diver back in '99, I was 25 and I was the youngest editor in the world in dive magazines. Well, I'm now 47 and I'm still one of the younger ones, which I find a bit worrying. So I think we need to get a younger lifeblood into diving, because diving's a cool sport. We know that, you know, it's the nearest you can get to flying. Yeah. And I just think we need to get more kids involved. But there's so many other sports and activities now. So you get them going mountain biking and kite surfing and wakeboarding, and they're all cool sports, but we just need to get them into diving as well. Because if we rely on all the people that are in it now, in about 20 years' time, they'll have all retired and we will have an industry.
No. Yeah, and you don't have, as you say, you don't have to be a tech diver, although, you know, that's got its place, and, you know, there's a lot of enjoyment in that as well. Not knocking that at all, but you don't have to be a tech diver to enjoy diving. You can stay, as you said, in the 10 meters and see loads of life, and, you know, just do that. That's really, which appeals to a lot of people, doesn't it? And it's probably easier to get people into for the shallows, I suppose, you know. But before we go too far into that, we've got some questions that we want to ask you, which we've asked everybody else. And Gemma's going to just kick start them. Okay. I've got 5 questions. Okay. Gemma?
Yep. So our first question that we ask all our guests is, have you got a dive location still on your bucket list? I know you've travelled amazingly a lot, but is there anywhere you still want to go, and why?
Yes, now there's actually, unbelievable, even though I've been travelling around the world for 22 years and I have been to a lot of places, so I've been very lucky. There's still just as many places I haven't been. So if I had to really narrow it down, it would probably be Truck Lagoon, because I'm a massive wreck head, and I've done Scapa Flow 9 times, but I've never done truck yet. So Truck Lagoon would probably be the top one for me.
Yeah. What's your favourite marine animal and why?
It'd have to be sharks if that was a complete, like, you know, family. And if it was one specific one, it'd be a tiger shark.
Then particular reason?
Which you had a good experience with, wasn't it, a tiger shark?
Yeah, I've had a few close encounters with tiger sharks over the years, because I've dived with them. Yeah, I've dived with them at Tiger Beach in the Bahamas. But then I say I've had a couple of other close encounters with them as well. But they're just such a beautiful looking shark. You know, I mean, bull sharks are cool and great whites are cool, and I do like oceanic white tips as well, because they have a bit of, you know, attitude. But tiger sharks, just, I don't know, special animal.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, can you give us 3 people, either from history or they're about now, who you'd like to either dive with, or for their non-dive who would snorkel with? 3 people?
David Attenborough, definitely, because I kind of grew up. He's the voice of, you know, me when I was, you know, started getting into diving. He was the voice that we've gone through. And I mean, I know he's getting on a bit now, but you know, he was back diving the Great Barrier Reef back in the 80s.
That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Just to dive and hear him talking to you in your ear.
Exactly. Even if he couldn't dive anymore and they just put him in a submersible with speakers, so that while we're on the water, he could be talking and describing it and I could hear him, that would be awesome. So that'd be, well, I said that's one. What else would I like to go diving with? I'd like to go diving with Steve Irwin, actually, because I know that he was a bit of a controversial figure in some respects, from getting a bit touchy-feely with stuff. But you also have to look at back when he was doing it, and at the height of his croc hunter fame, is he probably brought animals and the marine life into the lives of a lot of people who normally would not watch a documentary because of his different style. So I think we have to take into account, you know, that. And then the other one who definitely was of his time was Jacques Cousteau, because he was probably the one who got me into it, because my uncle was a commercial diver, but he had some videos from some of the early Jacques Cousteau series. And so it's from watching them that made me think, I want to go and explore that world. But again, they're definitely of a time because when
He
you
was
watch
amazing
now,
bloke.
you just sit there going, no!
He did
That's
the
the
Titanic
stuff
on
he does.
air, didn't
You
he?
know,
He done the
dynamiting the
Titanic.
reef and this, that, and the other. But again, you have to look at it over time, and you kind of
Yeah.
make excuses a little bit. But yeah, I think those would be my three. They're from different eras, but that'd be good.
He
Very good.
he done the Botanic on air, not just the once, just to prove it was luck. He did it again and again, and it's like, how do you do that?
Yeah,
And
it's
you
crazy.
think with how the diving gear was back then, and to do those sort of depths, and yeah, remarkable. Okay, last question for these anyway. So, if you could put something on a billboard, a message, a question, even a quote, even a picture, whatever, but there's a message you want to get out to the billions of people, what would be that message?
Yeah, I would probably, like I alluded to it before, but I think I'll do something like that. And something like scuba diving, it's the nearest you'll get to moving in 3 dimensions without going into space, or something like that. Because it is the nearest you can get to flying, is the way I do it. I mean, I know you could be like Andy Talbot and go jump out of a plane, but then you really are falling. You're just falling with style, as he puts it. But
Yeah,
with
Or
diving,
fast.
because you can move in any dimension, you know, you can move up and down, you can move side to side, you really have got that 3D movement.
Yeah.
And then the only other place you got that is in zero gravity. So that's why I always think it's the nearest you can get to flying, and it's that experience that I still enjoy. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going jumping into Cape and Ray on Wednesday. That's the first time I've been diving in 3 and a bit months.
Well, that's one of the questions we've got coming up actually about that. But
That's the longest I have been out of the water in about 30 years. I mean, my gills are drying up. I was even eyeing up the local river, and that's only about this deep, but I was going to get in anyway. But I'm still looking forward to that. And I mean, the viz should be good, and it'll be ground in it. But you know what? I've jumped in places when the viz has been diabolical, and I literally cannot see the hand in front of my face. And I still enjoy it because I just like the feeling of weightless and floating around. So
yeah, that is a beautiful thing. And Gemma, you've got this to come. I did a dive up at the Farns, and I think that's like Blue Rocks, I think call it. And you just do this big wall dive, and it's just full of life. And as you're going down, you just watch all the critters and starfish, you name it, and anemones, they're all there, all alive. And it is, you just think, wow, you know, as you're dropping down, it's just amazing feeling. So yeah, I totally agree with that. So where are you based at the moment?
I'm in North Shropshire, just outside of Oswestry, right on the Welsh border, which is tantalising because my local dive spot is normally Anglesey, and I can't go at the moment.
Yeah, well, hopefully it is relaxing a bit, and you know, it will. Yeah, another few weeks, and we'll be
exactly. We'll be back on track again then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what have you been coping with lockdown in terms of kind of what you've been doing and how the Scuba Diver magazine setup has changed?
Yeah, well, obviously the way we distribute the magazine is we have it free into dive centres, because that way every month when the magazine comes out, it drives people into the dive centre to go and pick their copy up, and that gives the dive centre the chance to, you know, engage with that customer. You know, they might not buy something every time or book a course or book a holiday, but at least they're seeing them regular. Well, with the lockdown, all the dive centres closed, our distribution hub closed, and the printers closed. So we were kind of forced into a temporary hiatus. So we stopped doing the magazine, and we've just been doing lots of stuff online. We launched our live streams on a Tuesday and a Friday that are all on YouTube and Facebook as well for people to see afterwards. So we started doing them, started doing a website. That kept us, you know, with something with our audience. And then we've just started doing the magazines again. So the first Australia and New Zealand went to print a week ago on Friday. The UK magazine, the first post-COVID one, is going to print this Friday. And then the US goes to print 2 weeks after that. So kind of back into the swing of things slowly but surely, and then try and start building back up to normal.
So do you have to change how you approach the different areas? You know, like, do you have to approach the Australian market different to how you approach the American market, say?
Yeah, and within each one, it's bespoke content. So there's the odd article. If I've got a Q&A with someone like Jill Heiner, for instance, we could run that in all 3 magazines because it's universal interest. But equally, I wouldn't run an article on diving in Cornwall in the Australia magazine. So I tend to have like local diving in each one, but it's area specific. So in the US, we tend to do Florida, California. Australia is coastline of Australia or New Zealand and obviously UK stuff. So there is some crossover with equipment reviews, but otherwise we do try and tailor it. And the news in particular is area specific. So I have to kind of juggle all three like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have representatives in all three areas that you liaise with, or do you take control of the majority of it all?
Well, I oversee all of it, but we have got an editor at large, as we call him, down in Australia, who is a British contributor, Adrian, who lives in Australia. His wife's Australian. He's got 2 kids born in Australia. So he's kind of our man on the ground down there. And then we've got Walt Stearns, who's a celebrated underwater photographer, who's our kind of man on the ground in Florida. So I have got someone there to liaise, but overall I oversee everything from HQ here.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's go back to, who got you started in diving? Was that a family member, or what happened there?
Yeah, if you looked at my family, I really shouldn't be into diving because my mum doesn't swim and my dad, he'll barely snorkel. So really from them, I wouldn't have ended up in the water.
But weren't they trying to talk you out of it?
But yeah, but my mum's brother, who was only 9 years older than me, so he was more like an elder brother because I'm an only child. So he was more like an elder brother to me rather than being my uncle. And he was a commercial diver, and he was also big in a BiG dive club in York. So he was the one who first took me in diving off of Anglesey in proper old school ABLJ, big round mast, proper old school days. And I was hooked. That first time I went in the water, it was just like, wow, this is amazing. And then it just carried on from there, really.
You didn't fancy going down the commercial route?
No, I never went the commercial route. I just was diving to start again. It's of an era when I was first diving with him. We were proper wreck divers back then, where if you hadn't gone on a dive and came back with some lumps of brass, you hadn't gone on a proper dive. Obviously, things have changed now. It's go down, take photographs, don't go rip lumps off wrecks. But again, back then it was a different era.
Don't need a crowbar.
Yeah, you don't need a crowbar anymore. We didn't need a weight belt though. We had that many tools on us. We didn't need a weight belt. But yeah, so he did that, and then I was just diving for a hobby, if you like, and then was a newspaper journalist. And then when I was 25, that was when the two dovetailed, and I started working at Sport Diver, and that's when it became my job and my hobby.
You must have been fairly brave doing commercial diving back then.
Yeah, back then that's when there was like, the North Sea, it was very high paid, but the risks were very high.
Yeah.
To be honest, he got qualified, done all of his training, done a few jobs, and then the bottom fell out of the North Sea market where there was all these qualified divers and there wasn't enough jobs. So then he went on to a different tack, and he went into doing like topside, like welding jobs and this, that, and the other. And he ended up traveling around with a team doing jobs all over the world, doing that side of things. But yeah, so that sent me off down my diving route.
Yeah.
So what level of qualification have you reached? Have you done lots of courses?
Yeah, I've got that. I mean, I started off with BiG. I've been diving for 13 years before I actually got qualified. Because they all taught me to dive.
Don't tell anyone.
They all taught me to dive, and then I actually had booked a holiday with my girlfriend to go to Malta, and we split up just a couple of weeks before we were due to go. And I remember just thinking, well, I'm going anyway. But then I thought, I'm going to be bored just sat there drinking. So I thought, I'll go diving, because I've never dived abroad. I'd only ever dived in England. And I remember it was the week before, and it suddenly dawned on me that I've got all my old equipment, which was all secondhand that I bought off people in the club that had been diving for years, but I had no qualification. So I did Novice 1, Novice 2 and Sports Diver in a week. So I started on the Saturday, finished on the Friday, and I flew to Malta on the Saturday with a crisp new logbook with 5 dives in it. And I could remember their faces when I got there, and I gave them this logbook, and they just looked at me, looked at the logbook, looked at all my old knackered kit, and thought,
oh no.
My God. Yeah, he's just bought a load of crap gear, and it'll be a nightmare. Anyway, when we were doing the dive, I remember he kept asking me what my aim was, and I kept telling him, and I don't think he was really going for it. He kept coming over and looking at me. And then at the end of the week, he went, "You're really good on air." He said, "You're really natural in the water and everything." Didn't have the heart to tell him I've been diving for 13 years. So that was BiG. That was when I got my BiG qualification. When I started with Sport Diver, I crossed over as a rescue diver to get a PADI qualification. Done various specialties with them, got up to Master Scuba Diver. I did my Dive Master qualification, and then I've done I've done various other advanced nitrox I did with TDI. I've done a couple of rebreather courses with IA and TD and TDI. So yeah, I've kind of bounced around, done courses with different people, and I've done a raid course and stuff as well. It's just interesting to see the different training methods, because at the heart of it, they're all much the same, to be fair. It's down to the instructor more than anything, but it was just good to see different things. People have been trying to tempt me for years to do my instructor course, but I'm too busy. I've never used a dive master in anger. I've got the dive master ticket. I've never, ever used it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I think that is such an involved thing. You really got to give it some quality time to, give it the right respect. And, if you're busy all the time, it's hard to give it that time, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And but when you were diving before you actually got in contact with BiG, when would that have been? Would that have been in the 90s?
Oh, let me get back with this.
I'm just thinking, would that even be possible today?
Yeah, because I don't know if it's not even novice 1, novice 2. I don't think anymore, is it? In the ocean diver, and then it goes to sport diver. But you could do it then when it was doing the stuff with a novice 1 and novice 2 and sports diver. It was possible to do it in 7 days. It's just that was because they're a proper commercials. They're like a BiG Premier school, whereas a lot of BiG clubs, obviously, you only like training for a small amount.
I don't think you could even do like 13 years today without having some kind of qualification.
You wouldn't be able to at all, because you wouldn't be able to get air fills. And I mean, it'd be very frowned upon, but obviously this was like back in the day. I mean, it would have been, early mid-80s when I first started, and then it would have been running through the 80s into the early 90s.
Incredible. So for someone like me, being a non-diver just starting out on my scuba journey, have you got any advice?
Don't do anything you don't want to. That's the main thing. My uncle, the one thing he always said to me right from the start when I was diving with him, he said, anyone at any point can call a dive and you don't have to say why. So you don't have to give a reason. You don't have to try and explain yourself. If you're just not feeling right about it on the boat, and you say, I don't want to get in, then that's how it goes. And I always remember that, and I've always told that to people when I dive with them, because there is a lot of peer pressure in diving, and people don't want to call a dive and ruin someone else's dive or this, that, and the other. And he always said, if your buddy has a problem with you calling a dive, then maybe you need a new buddy.
Yeah, no, that's good advice, definitely.
Yeah, that is. And always better to be on the surface wishing you was under, rather than underneath wishing you was back up there. So definitely good advice. So over this time, you must have seen a lot of changes. You must be seeing more women coming into the sport as well. Because one of the things that we do as a podcast is that we try and encourage more people to take up the sport, and particularly more women to get into the sport as well. Because one of the things we've noticed is, we could probably do with that. Do you think that's sort of happening now?
There has, but it's different. It's different in different areas of the world. Like in the UK, we've got a bit of an image problem with diving, because if you're diving in the UK and you're in dry suits and gloves and a hood, and the visibility sometimes can be, and it's just cold and this, that, and the other. It's fantastic diving, and I mean, with that, but it's not got the glamorous side. Whereas if you're in the Caribbean and you can go for a dive, I'm going for a dive in a bikini or a rash vest, and it's warm water and epically clear, and then you come out onto a tropical beach. So it's far easier. So you're finding the warmer places, the split between male and female divers is closer.
And a bikini always nips as well, don't you think?
But then in the UK, it's very skewed. That's the problem, is it's skewed. You've got far more men than women now. So dry suits now, compared with when I first started diving in there, are just it's so easy now to dive in a dry suit. They're thinner, they're easy to move around in, they're not as daunting. So, and they look cool. Some of these female specific cut dry suits from Santee and Fourth Element and the like, they're good looking suits. So it kind of gets past that, everything's black stage.
Yeah, that is true, because technology is moving on. One of our friends has ordered a pink one as well, so looking forward to seeing what that's like.
Well, you won't miss them.
No, no, definitely not. No, definitely not. And so, what about what is your choice of diving? Is it wreck diving, cave diving? One of the things that we seem to be finding is that the people that we speak to, they seem to either go down the wreck route or the cave diving route, or they just prefer going where the big marine life is. You know, what's your sort of main interest in diving?
Yeah, I mean, I do like wrecks, especially if it's a wreck with a story. You know, I find those very interesting. But then I do like my big animals. So, you know, being in the water with big sharks and this and the other, that's kind of gives me that thrill, makes you feel a bit insignificant when you're in the water then. But I also like the adrenaline dive. So like a screaming drift dive in the Maldives or something like that. It's just fantastic. I mean, I don't mind looking at the little stuff, nudibranchs and everything like that. But it's like once I've done a couple of dives doing that, I'm hankering after looking for a big shark.
Yeah, no, that is good. Just going back to dive kit, have you got like a favourite piece of dive kit, or do you stick with a particular brand?
No, and particularly with my role, obviously with the magazine, I try to bounce around a little bit with different kit. I've always got stuff on test, so it's very rare that I go on a trip and go diving in like what I class as my own gear. There's usually at least 2 or 3 things I've got that are on test, whether it's a computer, a regulator, or anything. I think probably the one thing that I've got that I do own that I am very close to are my force fins. And force fins, one of those things that really split opinion. I've got force fin pros. I've got accelerating force fins. I've got some SD1 force fins. I've got a pair of the SD flying force fins with a little wingtips, because Bob Evans, the creator, he's kind of adopted me as his long lost British relative. And I've got so many signed fins from him that are different thicknesses and this, that, and the other. And they do split opinion. People either love them or hate them. But what I find is that a lot of people who hate them have never actually tried them. They just go, well, they look stupid. And I'm like, well, that's in your opinion. But I've never found another fin.
There's a video of me going through the fuselage at NDAC, and they look really weird, how they all sort of curls. I don't think other fins kind of do that so much, but I've got the accelerator.
They do give you some power. My wife's got force fins as well, and she finds, because she's only little, she's only like 5'2", but she finds they give her the power to be able to, like, you know, punch through currents and stuff. And then my son was in force fins as well. So when we were in Grenada, we were like the little force fin family.
You must have a big dive kit room. Yes.
Yeah, the garage is full of gear. I've got all my gear and their gear, and then I've got all the test gears all piled up. So yeah, there's always something kicking around. It's like it's all behind me in the office as well here at the moment. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the water. That's probably one of my main things I enjoy, as well as the travelling, is the testing the kit, because kits change so much in 20 odd years that I've been testing gear. So it's cool to see how stuff has moved on.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to be like the next innovative piece of kit that's going to come out? What do you think
it's not going to be a helmet rebreather like the one that was at Dima. I don't know if you've seen any videos of that, but that was hilarious. It literally like a stormtrooper helmet, and it effectively had what looked like a Red Bull that clicked into the back, and that was providing the oxygen and everything. It was like, it was like, look, everyone was just, the guy was laying in the pool on the bottom, very still, I have to say, but he was just laying there breathing, and everyone was coming up going, is he dead yet? So I don't think it'd be that. I think the one thing I've seen that with battery technology moving on is scooters. Scooters are getting smaller and more powerful, because at one point, to get a decent scooter, you needed, you know, something like a Suex or something like that, and then it's a big investment, and they're a big unit to cart around. Whereas some of these small ones now, I mean, they're literally like this sort of size, with 2 little props on, hold it there, lithium battery in the middle, and the power those things put out. And they are good fun. Doesn't matter if you're a brand new diver or an experienced
I look at them, I think, wow.
Tearing around on those, it's great, because immediately in your head you start playing James Bond theme tune.
Yeah, I was at Stony last year, and I could hear this noise. Where's that noise coming from? And all of a sudden, yes, oh, there we go. Great.
No, they are definitely fantastic. I mean, rebreathers are cool, but I think the great thing about a scooter is with just, you know, you can put one in anyone's hand, give them a little bit of instruction so that they don't like go flying off up to the surface at speed or anything. But if they're flying around at level, you can't beat them for the fun factor.
Yeah, sounds fun.
So let's go back to diving. Where do you think diving's going to be like in, say, 10 years' time? Where do you think we're going to be looking like?
I mean, I'd like to think that we've got more younger people in, so that we've got a thriving dive scene. Because, like I said, at the moment, if you go to a lot of the dive shows in the States, in particular, it's a very aging demographic. And like I said, you know, that's the problem. If all the younger people are getting into other sports and we're not getting them into diving.
So is it an image problem?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit. I mean, I think when I first got into it, you know, Jacques Cousteau was doing it, and it was all very exciting, and you had Thunderball and Never Say Never Again on the films and stuff like that. So diving was all exciting. You're having underwater battles with giant knives and this, that, and the other. And then I think the problem you've got is that diving essentially is a very safe sport, really. If you're taught properly, you're diving within your limits. The equipment these days is really, really good. It's very rare if your equipment's looked after, you're going to have a major issue with anything underwater. So it's actually quite a safe sport. And I think that's kind of played against it, is that now it's overlooked by some kids because they don't see it as being an extreme sport. You know, they'll go and do mountain biking, and I say they'll go and do kite surfing and stuff like that. But diving, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to capture their attention. Yet the kids that do it, like my Luke, he thinks it's the most cool thing ever. Like underwater, he loves the flying field, he loves seeing the animals, and he totally gets it. But then he also mountain bikes, and, you know, we used to have a jet ski, and we've got a rib now, and he loves doing that. So he does other sports. So I think that's the thing, is people don't have to do one sport. You know, it's not like in the old days where it's people who are like,
no, that's right.
Or I'm a this. I mean, I mountain bike, we've got the rib. Diving is my main hobby, but I kayak, and, you know, I'll do it. It's like you can do other things. And that's what I always try and get people to do, is to say, well, look, if you're going away for a weekend and you're a diver, it's great. Take your mountain bike, because if the weather blows you out, you can go mountain biking. But if the weather's good, then you can go diving.
Merge some of them. So you can actually get in your kayak, go somewhere, dive, and kayak back. You know, you can actually merge things, you know.
Yeah, and you can do that with your paddleboarding as well, because some of the big paddleboards now have the stuff on the back to put your dive kit on the back, so you can paddle out to where you need to go, and then off you go.
Yeah, well, I can say I've done that with snorkeling.
Yeah, there you go. You see, you're already starting.
Yeah.
You're not the first to actually say that to us, though, about the age thing. And we've had somebody say that to us, haven't we, in the industry. You know, say that was actually one of their concerns about, you know, age, and the average age getting higher rather than lower.
I mean, that's why we have the section in the magazine called The Next Generation, which is purely aimed at kids and teenagers, to give them a spot. So I try and do case studies with kids so that they can be saying why they think diving's so cool. So then hopefully, if other kids are reading it, if there's a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old telling them diving's cool, that might resonate more with them than if I'm telling them that diving's cool and they think, why is the old bald guy telling me? You know what I mean? So there's that. And also, I think we need, I can't understand why diving isn't more popular now than before, because you can't turn the TV on these days without one channel at least having an underwater documentary on. Like, they're everywhere. And then I think they understood it with, like, Blue Planet, where they did the last 10 minutes of every episode showing you how they filmed some of that amazing footage. So then that made you think, God, I want to be in the water doing that. So I can't quite put my finger on it, because that type of promo wasn't around before. So we've got that. Right. You know, I mean, I think we could do with a couple of cool diving movies. I mean, the last one that came out that was a bit cheesy, but it was still awesome, was like Into the Blue. You know, and I think that, if we could have some, you know, like movies like that, it doesn't matter if they're a bit cheesy and they've got some, like, you know, underwater fight scenes.
With Mr. Corbett.
Yeah, that's it. See, we'll just get Torbs doing it. He'll be well up for that.
He will. Yeah, he will be right up for that, I'm sure.
Well, with the Go Diving show, obviously you've set that up. Do you kind of feel that will help with inspiring people to have a look at diving? Because obviously you're setting up for sort of some children elements at the Go Dive show this year.
I mean, that was always our aim, was to try and have people that they could relate to, who were amongst the speakers, or there was stuff that was exciting on the screens that they'd look at and go, wow, that looked really cool. And I think it's just important to try and open their eyes to the opportunities that are out there. I mean, yes, it's a cool sport, but equally there are various careers that they could go, you know, down with marine biology and this, that, and the other. So there's lots of elements to it. And I think, and I just think it's such a cool activity to be able to do. It'd be nice to see more young people doing it, because, like I said, the ones who are into it totally get it.
Love it.
But
Yeah.
and part of the thing is though that they totally get it, and the friends don't. But they almost like that because then they're doing this cool exclusive thing that their friends don't really understand what it's about.
Yeah.
We need it in schools, don't we? We spoke to Paul Rose recently, and yeah, he's a great one for sort of the education side of it, and you know that way to get youngsters into it and learning about the outdoors as well.
Yeah, I mean that's it. If you can get it at grassroots level like that, I mean it's great that the Scouts they've done various big tri-dive events and stuff. So at least that's getting younger people into it. There's more and more dive centres now that have a youth element. So they'll have pool sessions that are just for kids, and they bring the fun factor on, and they're working with local schools on their own level. But I think if there could be some nationwide approach to put diving into schools or get it in front of them, I think it'd be good. Even if they could, you know, maybe bring it in as part of the Duke of Edinburgh Award or something like that, because that gets them outdoors, you know, hiking and this, that, and the other. Well, if there could be, you know, some element of diving or something. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So what about like, did you see what ADEC did with their, with everything going virtual because of the virus? Did you see that
with the stuff? And I mean, obviously we're doing, you know, you're doing this thing, we've done our live streams, and I mean, it's a great way of engaging with people, and you can do things you can't do live, or face-to-face rather, because we do ours live, but face-to-face. So we did one where we were talking to people who were in the cenotes in Mexico, who were sat outside them, and somebody else was in Portsmouth, and we had them all over the place. So that use of technology is great, but I also think that you can't beat that feeling of being face-to-face with someone. Or you being sat there in the audience, and there's the big monster screen, and there they are on the stage with a little mic, and the kind of interaction with the audience, and you have that. You're more at the moment.
What's happened through the virus? UK diving has become far more a subject now. So how do you view UK diving?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big advocate for UK diving. You know, it kind of gets much maligned by a lot of people, you know, and yes, I've been on Cornwall. I mean, I remember we went down to do a series, we did Camp and Dive, and it was basically saying, look, save your money, don't pay for a B&B, get a tent, and then you can use that money you've saved to go out on a dive boat. So it was just like a fun way of doing it. And we'd gone to Cornwall, and the weather was fantastic. It was burning sun, blue skies, calm seas. You couldn't have got like a better topside ambience. It was fantastic, and the visibility was about that. Like literally, it was like jumping into green soup. So much plankton. I just remember we swam around, my buddy and I, for about 20 minutes, and I couldn't see him. I knew he was there because I could hear him giggling through his regulator, but I had no idea where he was. And we just swam around in about 2 meters until we just gave up, and then we went to the pub and did a pub dive instead. But it was still fun, and I think that there's too many times people get caught up on, oh, it's cold, it's bad viz. Well, you can go to, as he mentioned before, you go up to the Farne Islands, you can be in 5, 6, 7 meter viz there, sat in 4 meters of water, getting cuddled by a seal. I mean, it's one of the world's best dives. It's absolutely fantastic. You can go off Cornwall and swim with basking sharks or blue sharks. You know, that's amazing. And yes, sometimes the viz can be less than perfect, but all I do then is tell people to look smaller. I mean, I took Luke in for a dive off Treorder Bay. Now, off Ravens Point and Treorder Bay, I've done dives off there, and we've had 10, 12 metre visibility. You know, you can see all the colours of the kelp and everything. It's fantastic. But more often than not, it's usually around about 4 to 5 metres. So I'd been in the week before, and it was about 10 metres. So I persuaded him to go in with me, and we got in, and it was about 6 feet, the viz. It had just all stirred up. But all I did was, he was fine, and we just looked at all the smaller stuff. So instead of just swimming around going, oh, the viz is bad, I can't see 10 metres, look at what's in front of you. So we found lobsters and crabs and shrimp, and I found a dogfish hiding underneath a rock. Oh, wow. And we were looking within about a 2-foot radius of us as we swam around. Yeah. And it was still a fantastic dive. I think it's all in your mind of how you approach it. You know, if you go in expecting 40 metre viz and it's not 40 metre viz and you're disappointed, well, you're limiting yourself. Whereas if you go in going, I'm going to enjoy this dive and kind of go with it, you know, it's great.
There's some great places to dive in the UK. Absolutely great places. Very fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, at least, you know, what is it? They reckon you're only 2 hours away from the coast, wherever you live or something like that. And then obviously we've probably got more inland dive sites for the size of the country than a lot of other places. You know, you've got Cape and Ray and Stony Cove and Endac and Vobster and Vivian and all these places. And, you know, they're all great. You know, I mean, I do most of my testing in quarries purely for logistics because if I've got, 27 regulators in 3 price bands to test, it's just easier having them where I can get in and get some depth very quickly.
Yeah.
And if you're new to diving, and you settle in a new piece of equipment, or just to keep your hand in, just to be able to get in the water and go diving, you can't beat them. But I still urge people to go in the sea, because we didn't learn to dive just to dive in a quarry all the time.
No.
So use the quarry, but then get yourself in the sea. Even if you don't go deeper than 4 meters, you're going to see lots of marine life. So, that's the thing, is explore our coastline.
Yeah, we've heard so much from people we've spoken to about how diverse it is, around the UK. And, I just think, I can't wait. It's like, and it's all on the doorstep. We don't have to get on a plane to, experience some, great diving as well.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the pro of some form of COVID-19, because, this year was a nightmare. As we went into lockdown, I think that was probably the best start to a British dive season we have had in so many years. The weather up around here, my friend lives in Anglesey, and he was just showing, it was just glass flat. The viz was unbelievable. It was just amazing, day after day after day, from the Easter weekend onwards, if not before the Easter weekend. It was like the perfect start to give the British dive industry a shot in the arm, and we couldn't do anything because we're in lockdown. And typically now, as we're starting to open up, the weather's turned, and now we've got mixed weather. Now, it looks like it's starting to pick up again. And if people can at least get diving, we can at least salvage something of this season. If we can get through the rest of June and then get July, August, September, and into October, then that'll be great.
Yeah.
But I think the benefit will be with the travel restrictions at the moment, and perhaps people's confidence about traveling, is the UK staycation for diving will get a bit of a lift. And we've actually started trying to do a push of bring a buddy, as we called it. So if you're a hardcore British diver and you know someone who's only ever dived abroad, then grab them and drag them kicking and screaming for a dive in the UK.
Yeah, good idea.
Just to get them to show what they're missing. They might not enjoy it. It might not be something they'll want to do all the time, but it might just wake them up what's on their doorstep. So it's like, look, instead of sitting there waiting until you can travel, get your dive kit on and get in the water and then see what you think.
Well, we have reefs here as well, don't we? We've got chalk reefs just off Norfolk. Got some great reefs.
Like we said, we've got some great wrecks. We've got reefs. We've got nice marine life, little marine life, big marine life. So, and the water's not that cold. Once you get into the summertime, you can get away with wearing a thicker wetsuit if you're in for say half an hour, 40 minutes. So you don't have to wear a dry suit. But then equally, I would say to people, look, wear a dry suit, be comfortable, then you won't notice the cold. You could be in as long as you want then. So,
it's true. It's good. So do you support any charities or anything?
I actually, my wife and I cycled from London to Paris on mountain bikes for the Whale and Dolphin Conservation Society.
Oh, wow.
That nearly killed us. Everyone else was on road bikes and we were on mountain bikes with fat tyres. Man, that was hard work.
I bet. Oh, it's good. Well done.
But it was good, and we raised about $3,500 for them with that, because it was good. Because that's when I worked as sport diver, and if you were doing something for charity, they had a scheme that whatever you raised, they'd match it.
Oh, brilliant.
So that was good. And then on a smaller scale, we do things. I always give money to the RLNI because my entire family, we've got a static caravan over in Anglesey, and my mum and dad have as well. My family's been going there for 4 generations now. And my dad's got a little sailing dinghy. Like I said, we've had jet skis, got a kayak, we've got ribs. So we're out on the sea a lot. Now, touch wood, we haven't really ever needed them in proper anger yet. And I hope we don't, but they're there if you need them. So we always support them. And then, there's other people here and there. We do stuff for like Sea Shepherd, buy bits and pieces from them to give them a bit of a lift. The thing is, there's so many worthy charities out there now. It's very difficult to kind of focus on one or the other. So I tend to try and bounce around a little bit and give them all a bit of love. Yeah,
it's good. It's good, Mark.
Yeah, it is amazing how many, even organisations for the marine conservation side of things, as well as, the other charities. Yeah, there is a lot out there.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, why did you come up with the idea of the BiG podcast?
Well, I was on one before. I was on Scuba Confidential, and I really enjoyed it. And that finished the end of last year, and spent quite a bit of time getting involved with that, and really enjoyed that. So I thought, right, the best thing to do is to get back into it, but have a slightly different focus, and look at actually somebody like Gemma, who's wasn't a diver at the time, and you bring that into a focus and look at that part, because there's always a bigger fish, you know. There's always somebody who's got more experience, done more dives and things like that. And it's good to, you know, and there's people out there doing those kind of podcasts and that type of work, and that's really great. That those things are catered for. But we thought, well, there's not that many actually looking at introducing more people into diving, introducing more women into the sport, you know. And when I spoke to Gemma about it, is, you know, that was one of the aims that we thought we would do, and that's the way the podcast would be focused.
And it is so easy, you know, to go down one path, like a technical path, but we don't want to do that. We want to, show that diving has got all these different paths to go down for, you know, young people coming into it. You know, there's the photography side, there's career choices. So it's just a kind of a bit of education from our eyes, I suppose, and as we go along on our journeys as well. So
we're also a bit more, I suppose, business focused as well, which I think there's strength in numbers. So one things that we've learned, I suppose, since doing this is with networking, you realise, you know, everybody know each other in the industry. It's quite a small industry, and with building those contacts up, you know, you can soon, you know, get to speak to people, and pull them into the podcast, have a chat with them, find out what's going on, and it's surprising, you know, just how much you learn just by doing that. And hopefully you can make entertaining, interesting content as you build and, you know, evolve, really.
Yeah, no, I think it's all good. Like you said, you're coming from a different approach to some of the others out there. I mean, that was one of the reasons with our live stream, the way we did it was, again, I think that some of these webinars that are out there are fantastic. They're very informative and everything. But there was a lot were coming on the same sort of time, where it was one person presenting for 45 minutes, an hour. And so that was why we kind of thought, right, let's go for the chat show style, you know, which is more like this. And so it's like, you know, the host, bring the guest in, have a chat with them, bring the next guest on, and all that sort of stuff. And it's good. Hopefully it is engaging. And like I said, it might be another way of people who perhaps, you know, don't read magazines, or they wouldn't have this, or they wouldn't have checked that. And it's just another way of captivating them and getting them to see what our sport is all about.
We're in a modern world now. Sorry, we're in a modern world now, and with all the social media, I mean, just seeing the effect that we can have on posting on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, it's, you know, just amazing. You wouldn't just get that by sending an email or picking up a phone. It's, you know, the world is a different place now.
Yeah, and also it's good because once you've done something and then it sits there on YouTube, you know, people are, like, we've seen stuff that we filmed, you know, 6 weeks ago. Somebody's found it, and then it suddenly, you know, their numbers are going up and up and up. So we've got good numbers on them anyway, but they're starting to go because they'll watch one and then they'll watch another one. And so they're on there then. So once they're on YouTube, you know, you've gone to the effort of producing it, but it's now there. So it doesn't matter if somebody watches it in a year, 2 years, 3 years, a lot of the content would still be valid and interesting. So it's a good way of, you know, producing something that's timeless, really.
Yeah, and it's a learning process. We've learned loads, you know. We come at this not knowing the technology or anything, really. We just had an idea, and we kind of had to evolve as we go and build it, you know, from scratch. And it's fun, you know. And you could probably say the same to you, you know, when, you know, that must have been quite scary for someone like, you know, when you, was it 25 when you were the head of that magazine, to wake up one day and you think, flip, I'm the editor of this big magazine, you've got responsibilities, you know, what's more scary? You're being chased by something like a tiger shark, or the head of one of the biggest magazines out there, and people looking at you going, right, what are we going to do today? What are we going to share today?
Yeah, it was a big jump, because before that, when I worked on a newspaper, you know, it's a totally different setup on a newspaper, because I was the head journalist on this weekly newspaper. So it was like, you know, there was a deadline, was like, basically it went every Thursday to print. But we'd write the story, but then there was like a deputy editor and editor that they were doing the headers, they were doing bits and pieces. So everything you were writing was short and concise. I think the longest I used to write was about 300 words. So when I went from that to being the editor of the magazine, suddenly I've got a month to get something done. I'm writing 3,000 word features. Everything was completely different. And it really was a bit of a mindset to try and turn myself around to what I was doing. But, you know, it's one of those things, kind of face the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all good. Yeah, well, it's interesting, you know, the journey, and you do face your fears, because that's another thing that's come out of conversations with people. You've got to face your fears, try these things.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I said, when I said about don't do anything that you don't want to, you know, I stand by that. But equally, sometimes if you're into it and there's just something that it's safe to do, but it's just a little bit outside your comfort zone, and it's just pushing you that little bit, so it's a learning curve, then it's good to do those things, because that's what you learn from. So you're not putting yourself in danger. You're not doing anything. It's just, to you, it's kind of taking a big step. But in reality, it's just a small step. But, you know, it's just you do that, and that's how your diving grows over the years, really.
Yeah. So have you got anything on your magazine for like non-divers and people who are now starting up? I know you said you got something for youngsters.
Yeah, we've got real entry-level stuff that's kind of aimed at new divers. I don't necessarily have much in there for non-divers, like complete non-divers, because of the way that we distribute the magazine. It's in the dive centre. So people who go into a dive centre, they're either a diver or they've already made the decision that they want to be a diver. So then if they pick a copy of it up, hopefully with the nice illustrations, nice big images, you know, there's inspirational stuff in there, there's enough to capture their attention. But because we're not on newsstand or anything like this, there'd be so few people that would pick a diving magazine up on a whim because they've maybe contemplated going diving. It wouldn't be worth giving, you know, pages are precious. So I try and use the pages to maximum effect. So, you know, but I do try to have something for everyone within diving. So there's entry-level stuff, there's intermediate stuff, there's stuff for tech divers, there's the equipment test section that everybody likes, and then there's the hints and advice section, you know, about buoyancy or weighting or finning or things like that, which anyone can benefit from. So, you know, well, that's it, because I'm going to try and get out and about a bit more as soon as we're able to with this, to try and get around to different dive sites and everything, because it'll actually be quite nice to try and meet up with some people that I've only been seeing through a screen. So hopefully, you know, if you guys are out diving somewhere, we might be able to rendezvous then. So that'd be good. Then I could actually get some photographs of you underwater, get you into the mag.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much for all your time. It's been brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been lovely to meet you.
Yes, it was nice to meet you. Like I said, hopefully we might actually see one another face to face at some point. We're swimming by one another underwater and we were like,
I recognise that.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, thank you for having me on.
Great. Okay. All right, thanks so much for your time. That's been great.
All right, no worries. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
You're diving when you're actually able to get wet.
Yes. All right, thanks, Mark.
All right, no worries.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.
Well then, Gemma, what do you think of that? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah.
I thought, actually, to use the words of Neil Armstrong, I actually thought, well, you know, that's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. You know, it's just started a magazine and started this Go Diving show. Brilliant thing.
Yeah, such an early age as well. He has footprint there.
Yeah, it's great. So I thought Mark Evans' great diving career, and it's exciting, and also, you know, it's exciting what way he's going with the magazine and also the diving show. So thank you very much, Mark. That was great. You know, you gave us the time to talk to us about that, and you know, we look forward to seeing what way, you know, and how you develop the magazine further. So that'd be brilliant, and also look forward to seeing you at the Go Diving show next year. That'd be good. Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of us. Wrap things up a bit for today. Thank you very much, as always, for listening. Gemma, who have we got coming up next on the Big Scuba podcast?
We have got Keller and Janice from Manta Pacific.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's
Good.
really exciting. So we interviewed them. They were in 2 different time zones and they were talking about the Manta Pacific project.
That's right. Before I remember, they were,
One-
one was in,
Hawaii, Keller was in Hawaii, and I think Janice was in Washington. Yeah.
so it's really good. I really enjoyed talking to them as well. It's, you learn so much, you know, about these mantas, you know, and they are just magical creatures, aren't they?
Yeah, and Keller was just so enthusiastic.
Still loves his dives too. How about that?
Yeah.
Done
Yeah, so
15,000 dives and still log every single one of them.
Yeah.
There's not many people who can say that, you know, that they're doing all them dives and still logs them and still get excited, still finds the magic.
and
in
honestly,
every
if you listen to it, you'll get excited about diving.
I know. I could feel, you know, I could feel the smile in my mouth coming up to me. You know, because you think, wow, I want to do this. I want to learn more. I want to know more. And it's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, and see a manta.
And so, man, yeah. We don't see many of them around this way on the East Coast.
Not on the North
Okay.
Norfolk coast, no, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it'd be nice one day.
Exactly. So I think that's it for episode 28. And all we can say is just for check out our YouTube channel. We've got audio books on there. We've got lots of exciting visuals of us kayaking, paddleboarding, diving. So go to our YouTube channel, The Big Scuba, subscribe, like, and share.
Yes, and also very quickly, thank you to our friends as always, Mares, Blue O2, Reef World, Fourth Element, Shearwater, Power Lens. If I've forgotten you, don't mean it, but thank you very much. You know who you are. Thanks for all your support as always. And also, thank you very much for listening. We can't do that without you guys listening and feeding back. Oh, also, if you've got any questions, do write in. We always need some questions.
Yeah, email us,
Okay.
direct message us on our social media sites. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just send us
On it like a car bonnet, as they say. So I heard. Anyway, on that note, see you all later.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Dreaming of the sea.